Hello, so I'm going to be going over the full course of an introductory college level microeconomics course or AP Microeconomics. Microeconomics is a study of of small economic units like individuals, firms, industries, things like that. And macroeconomics is the economy as a whole, but we're going to be focusing on microeconomics. So that's going to be like, small little businesses or a demand for a particular type of good, but not the whole economy. In this class, we're going to make a lot of assumptions, with the idea being to simplify very complex things, because the economy is very complex, and so we want to try and break it down and make it understandable to understand some of the key components. You've probably done this before in a physics class. For example, if you have a pin and then you dropped it in a physics class. If you dropped the pin, it would fall down due to gravity. But there's going to be some drag on there, some wind resistance, and that depends on a lot of things. And so, in a introductory physics class, you may not learn about these drag forces or how to calculate them, at least relatively early on. And so that's what we're going to do in economics as well. We're going to make some assumptions and simplify things to make it easier to understand at the beginning. We have five key assumptions that we're going to talk about. The first of the assumptions is society has unlimited wants and limited resources. The idea of scarcity. Like, let's say I just got a new house. Great, I got something I wanted, maybe even needed, depending on what it is. Okay, I got a new house, but uh, I want a new TV and I want a new video game to play on that TV. And this just keeps going and going and going. You might be okay with not getting that new thing, but for the most part, if people had unlimited resources and unlimited money, they just get whatever they wanted. And we don't have unlimited money and unlimited resources, and that is the idea of scarcity. We have to figure how to allocate these limited resources to benefit people most. The next assumption is that because of scarcity, we must make choices, and there's some trade-offs. You may have heard of the idea of there's no such thing as a free lunch, and that is, let's say you had, uh, this is the idea of opportunity cost. So, but the idea is, let's say you have uh, this free lunch. It's a 15-minute drive, and you go over there because it's free lunch to you. But that is only the explicit costs. That is, okay, I'm not losing any money by going over here. But there's another cost that is implicit, that is the cost of your time and what you would have been doing. In those 15 minutes, you could have driven over there from work to get lunch. So let's say you're at work and you go over there to get lunch. You could have been working for those 15 minutes. So whatever your salary was in those 15 minutes, you could have gone to the place 2 minutes away and gotten a $5 lunch. You could have gone to the place that was 10 minutes away and it was really high quality, but you would have had to pay for that. So while those things are not not necessarily free, those other places aren't necessarily free. You they the place where you got free lunch is also not free. because you had to still spend time going over there. It was a sacrifice of your time to get this free lunch. So there's no such thing as a free lunch. Everybody faces trade-offs. Next is that everyone responds to incentives and acts in their own self-interest. This one, I feel like we can all kind of see this in real life. You might have been shopping with one of your parents when you were 7 or 8 years old, and if someone had a coupon for milk that was 50% off or something, you're gonna buy some milk. If there was a sale for something, you're gonna be more likely to get something. That is an incentive. People respond to that incentive. This could also be negative. You see that uh, prices have gone up and your wage hasn't gone up, and you're gonna say, I'm not gonna buy those eggs today. I'm gonna buy something else. People will respond to those incentives. They don't want to waste extra money that they don't have to. People respond to incentives and have their best self-interests at heart in mind. Next is people make decisions by comparing marginal costs and marginal benefits of every choice. This is the idea that people will look at the benefits and costs of doing something. So we're going to look at this a lot in this class, but let's say they have some benefit to buying eggs, right? It provides nutrition, maybe diverse flavor profile if you're one of those cooking nerds. The purchasing of these eggs will have some benefit, but there's also a cost that in most cases will be the price, but you might have to factor in some implicit costs, like we said before with the opportunity cost. And if the benefit of buying those eggs is better than the cost, then we will buy them. Then real life can be explained, that's what they're on, and analyzed through models and graphs. So we're going to be looking at a lot of graph in micro and macroeconomics. So these models help simplify complex systems. For example, a model you might have in your head is from elementary school is the sun shines and it grows the grass, and then the cows eat the grass, and it gives the cows energy because they ate grass. And so that shows the transfer of energy from the sun to the grass to the cows. But they didn't explain all of the complex stuff that goes through that. You have, when the sun shines on the grass, you have the photosynthesis and the chloroplast making it green, and which grows the grass and some of the other stuff in there that makes it grow that I don't know. And then when the cows eat the grass, you have the digestion and probably something to do with ATP. I'm not a biologist, but the cows digest it and it converts it to energy. You're not necessarily taught all of those subsystems, you're taught the general outline of the sun shines down on the grass, the cows eat the grass, and it gives the cows energy. We use models to simplify complex things in economics, just like that. So, some key vocabulary for this course is the idea of investment. And that is not what you might think it is. If you are at a party and someone says, how are your investments going? They are talking about your stocks and bonds. If you put money in the stock market, that to the public is considered investment. But in a economics class, investment is money spent by the businesses to improve your production. If you invest in your company, you are putting something in there to make it better. If I own a pizza business and I buy an oven to cook the pizzas, I invested in that pizza oven to make my company better. Because then we have more ovens, we can cook the pizza more, we can cook more pizzas. Or if the other one breaks, we still have something. We are investing in our company to make it better. This brings us to the two types of goods that there are. And so we have consumer goods, which are created for direct consumption. That would be a pizza, a hamburger, a video game. And I know you can't eat a video game, but it's you're using it directly. You're not using it to do something else. Well, capital goods are indirect consumption. If you buy it, it will help you do something else. For example, an oven, blender, knives, things like that. They are used to get uh, consumer goods, but it's an indirect. Then we have human capital. So this is similar to a capital good in the fact it helps indirectly increase consumption. But it is a human learns a skill, whether I train this person or this person goes to school and learns the skill, whatever it is. They have increased human capital. If I'm a food shop owner and I send all of my workers to a 15-minute course on how to properly cook pizzas, they have learned a new skill and how to cook pizzas properly. Maybe there's some special way that we do here, and they've gained human capital. Now we're going to talk about the different types of economic systems. We have a command economy, a centrally planned economy. Those are one economic system, and that is where the government controls everything. And the other end of the spectrum is completely free market capitalism, where everyone is free to create a business and get whatever money they can get from it. And there's no, you can't exactly do one extreme of this. You have to do a little bit of a mix. This, there's always a spectrum. So if this is like capitalism and this is complete communism, you can't be entirely over here. You could be relatively close, but you can't be entirely on one end. I would say America is about right here because there's some things that the government has to do. Like this is halfway. Uh, I'd say America's around this area of capitalist because the government has to do some things. Like the Food and Drug Administration has some regulations to make sure you're not poisoning the entire country with your food and drugs. But for the most part, you can create a business and you might get shut down because of more powerful companies, or you might have found a niche and grow. However, more and more people are going to say it's about right here, and this is the concept of socialism, which is the idea of instead of the companies having and owning all of the means of production, the general people own the means of production. Of course, we're going to focus on the free market capitalism, the idea that let individuals do it and we're going to let the market do its thing. And that should help allocate resources based upon who has the best business or whatever the market thinks, basically. If people want it, then whoever produces that gets the money. The idea of this free market. That's what we're going to be focusing on. This is the idea of the invisible hand of capitalism. If society wants cell phones, then people who are interested in profit will start creating cell phones. And then they will start selling cell phones and making money. And then other people who want money will see that this company is getting money from creating cell phones. And they're like, I want to do that too. That seems to be making a lot of money. And so they hop into the cell phone business and they create competition. If cell phone company number two starts creating their cell phones with more storage and higher resolution cameras, they start shooting in 8K. Uh, Cell phone company one is going to say, oh, we need to do that too. And they compete. And generally, this is good because they will create higher quality because of this competition. It'll create greater efficiency and generally lower prices. Because if a company says, well, if I can make more profit if I lower my prices, maybe, so that more people will come to me because they see the lower prices, and I'll get more money, and the people will stop coming to the other place. And so this will generally drive the price down. And the idea of the invisible hand is this. Society's goals will be met as individuals seek their own self-interest, the self-interest of people making money, and the goals of society. I guess society wants this society wants cell phones. The government does not need to get involved because this idea, the needs of society are met automatically. There might be some regulations, and this brings up the idea of mixed economies. So, a system with free markets, but maybe has some government intervention is a mixed economy. That's what I was saying before. You can't have these absolute extremes. You have something in between. Like America's probably about right here. We have some government saying, okay, we need to tax some of these people and give it to the people who are still really trying, but just can't quite make it. There are stimulus checks, the things that it would look like on this side where we're giving money to the poor people to make things more equal that we're doing over here. Maybe not as an extreme level. The idea of mixed economies, maybe some free market, but a bit of government intervention, or the exact opposite. Mostly government intervention, but a bit of free market. Next is the idea of the production possibilities curve. And so this is a graph like we talked about before. This is the first graph you learn in micro or macroeconomics, and this visually illustrates opportunity cost or trade-offs. So the production possibilities curve can have multiple different axes. So, and it can look like a couple different things. So you have PPC, and so you're going to have two goods. And so if the goods have similar resources, like robots and computers, uh, right, robots and computers, robots and computers, you might be asked to draw this. So if someone says, draw the production possibilities curve for robots and computers, this is what you would do. And they would probably say with a constant cost or a constant opportunity cost. This is what this means, the linear slope. So if I have a quantity of computers and robots A and a quantity of computers and robots B, the change in quantity from here to here, the slope is constant from A to B as it is from B to C or A to C. There's no change in slope, constant opportunity cost. And so if this is 600 uh, and this is 800, you can produce 600 robots and 800 computers, or I don't think these numbers would check out, but the idea is here you could produce 0 robots or 1400 computers. So this is an either or. You can do, if this is point C, you could do, you could produce at point C, creating 1400 computers and no robots, or point A where you create 600 and 800, or you could do a point B where all of your resources go into robots. It's an either or. This shows the different opportunity costs. Next is the idea of an increasing opportunity costs. So these are the two types of production possibilities curves you will have. And so this is a bowed out curve. That was kind of bad. Let's, there we go. So if the inputs aren't similar, like robots and something completely different from robots, uh, candy. So over here, we can make 1,000 robots. Actually, let's do 500 robots and 1,000 pieces of candy. So you could either make 1,000 pieces of candy and no robots, or 500 pieces of candy of robots and no candy, or you can do some value in between. And and you can see that as we go along the curve in either direction, the price that we give up for another good is increasing. Here, if this is 900 candy and uh, 300 robots, the price that we gave up here to get the additional 300 robots is only 100 pieces of candy. But here, if this is 500 pieces of candy, and this is 400 robots, to get the additional only 100 this time, we had to give up 400 pieces of candy. So this is increasing opportunity cost. And it's the same thing the other way. Have the two different PPCs, constant opportunity cost and increasing opportunity cost. This is the one you're going to see more often because this introduces the idea of specialization. So if we have some people working at the candy company who are really good at making candy, we have some people that are really good at making robots, and we're producing here, and we're like, okay, we're gonna send the people who are really good at making robots but are bad at making candy, and we jump over here. I mean, they're not making candy, so we lose a little bit, but they're really good at making robots, so they can make a lot more robots. But as we switch more and more people over to the robot factory, we're moving some of the people who aren't as good at making robots and who are good at making candy. And so this is making less and less candy. And that is what generates this bowed outward shape. And technically you can have a decreasing cost thing, but you're never going to see it. So we're not going to talk about it because that wouldn't ever be applicable to the real world. So I'm going to talk about this point right here. Let's call this point I. Point I, it's inefficient um, because we could be producing here. We might be producing there because we're in a recession or there's some grand unemployment. Whatever, for whatever reason, we're inefficient. We are not using all of our resources. But here, we are using all of our resources. We are efficient. Any point along this curve is efficient. Um, and out here, we currently cannot produce. We cannot currently produce at point A. But if there was a technology that increased our production of candy and robots, then maybe we could. Or let's say it just increased candy. So it moved all the way up here. And so now our curve would look something like like this. Because we can't produce any more robots, but we can produce more candy. So we might be able to point to point A now. If we have some new candy making technology or more human capital in the making of candy, whatever that may be. So that would shift our production possibilities curve out, the increase in productivity. If you were asked to draw a PPC, um, then they'll either tell you what to put on each axis or it doesn't matter. So now I'm going to talk about uh, consumer and capital goods for in regards to economic growth. And this is dipping into macro, but it's still just an interesting topic and it's still good to know for micro. So if we have two countries and we have the consumer goods. So that is direct consumption. And we have capital goods. And currently they have identical PPCs that look something like this. Just try to make them about the same. So country one likes capital goods. So this is they're doing a bit of consumer goods, but they like capital goods. And over here, they like consumer goods. So the yellow represents our current production possibilities curve. But generally, as time goes on, economies will grow. And so this country might grow and produce, uh, and be able to produce more capital and consumer goods. This is a shift in your PPC due to economic growth. That's pretty good. But when you are producing capital, then you can reinvest it into the country and make even more consumer and capital goods. You may not be able to make as many capital goods, but you can make more consumer goods. So the production possibilities will increase on the consumer goods side if you're focused on capital goods. So this increases and this creates some more economic growth on the to be able to produce consumer goods. Because if you have more ovens, then you can make more pizzas. And this is the idea of uh, capital versus consumer goods and future growth. So this is the very first lecture for college economics. I hope you found this helpful.